Hi, my name is Heidi Hollis. I am the host of Dark Becomes Light on the Coast to Coast AM and Paranormal Podcast Network. I am also the author of 8 books, many more coming, and I have been featured on a lot of different paranormal and UFO shows out there, like Ancient Aliens, The Proof is Out There, co-hosted on Mysteries Decoded, as Ryan has been, and many others. And I am the person that has essentially been the first person to discover, name, define, and trademark 2 paranormal UFO phenomena, shadow people and Hat Man. And I wanted to discuss my topic today, God, UFOs, and shadow people, how they're connected, and how in the face of the conversation out there that people who are finding for the first time that UFOs might be real, and how to balance that with having faith, meaning in God, or anything else that people feel is true and real for themselves. And so I'm going to do a quick presentation on what that is and share my screen here with you. Alrighty. So, as I mentioned, my podcast, Dark Becomes Light, Coast to Coast AM. And you can also reach me at HeidiHollis.com. Now, I am also a cartoonist, and I like to have fun with these topics. Why? Because that's the person that I am. And I think it's important when people are discussing these topics that they are who they are. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to blend everything that I'm into my comics. As you can see, the Outlanders comic here. Okay, but as I mentioned, shadow people, that's the topic that most people know me for. And I have been put into the category as being all into the paranormal, because that's what shadow people are. But I'm telling you today, as I've been telling for over a couple of decades now, I started having, well, first off, shadow people also come in the form of shadow spiders. But I have been discussing UFOs and aliens forever. And I think it's important to know the largest UFO that I've witnessed actually looked very much like this one. This is a photo that Carlos Diaz took, and he called it a plasma UFO. And that's something that I personally witnessed that took up the entire night sky. It was so large, my friends and I thought the moon was moving until it came right over us, and I was able to gauge pretty quickly as it started to move, that's not the moon. But the thing that blew my mind is I'd never seen a craft shaped like this or heard of one, and to have this full body glowed this orangish color that you see here at the bottom middle. And I didn't see inner workings of a craft. I just saw this absolutely unbelievable glowing mass that I felt was alive. So several years later, when Carlos Diaz put out this photo, I was blown away, because this is very much what I saw. And for him to reference it as being a plasma UFO, I concur. Now, I am a person that has seen UFOs that responded, okay? And the very first one did something very similar, as you see here. I was having essentially a faith crisis because, I was raised Christian, okay? And I'm like, well, people think I'm into the occult, that I'm worshiping demonic things. And I'm like, no, this is not it. And then I'm like, you know what? I just had this feeling like I was to look into this topic. I didn't know quite why I should. All I knew is there was something absolutely pulling me and connecting me. But if it was demonic, as people are saying, I didn't want anything to do with it. So I went out back to this parking lot and I looked up at the night sky, and I'm like, look, if you guys have anything to do with something demonic, I am done right here, right now. unless you show yourselves. And immediately, this craft appeared to my left and streaked and lit up the parking lot that I was in, just the length of that parking lot. And let me tell you, it changed a lot in me that day. To know that they heard me, and I knew they could somehow, and for them to respond to me just put me on a whole different understanding that I was to continue looking into this. And I knew that they were there somehow for me in some kind of respect of that. Okay, but that wasn't the end of craft responding. I saw something that looked very much like this, dropping down out of the sky, very low over my friends and I's heads. Just absolutely dramatic. And I joined a UFO group before I started this one that you see here on the screen. I joined a group of people who had been abducted by aliens. I have never been abducted by aliens. I've been saying that for as long as I can know. And people like to say, oh, you just don't recall. It's like, if I don't recall, that's one thing. But I really am pretty certain I have not been abducted. I don't have any memories of that. And it's okay to be that person who doesn't feel that they've been abducted by alien beings. A lot of people try to push their beliefs on another, and I don't think that's okay. But when that group ended, I started my own. I called it UFO to You, and a lot of you who have been in this field for some time might actually recognize this website because it was out there before a lot of people had websites, and it was often voted in the top UFO sites online. And so I had a good time with the graphics. My college roommate would create them, and I put them up as soon as I could, and just had a ball designing and putting that out there. And I had a very, very active UFO group for 15 years. Okay. And only stopped because I moved out of town and I just got busy. But 15 years, I met so many wonderful people in that time. And I would go to so many conferences and I learned so much, so much. And the group covered a lot of topics. I'm, again, cartoonist. I had some fun with this. We covered everything from aliens to Bigfoot. We even covered miraculous topics. We spoke on spirituality and having faith as I do as a Christian. I spoke of it freely in the meetings as well. Now, when I first joined that group prior to my starting the UFO2U.com group, I got invaded in my apartment by beings that looked much like this and not appreciated. I wasn't abducted. But soon after that, I had this being showed up. Now, I'd seen it once before, following a friend of mine, but I knew somehow that these things were connected. And again, a long story short, because I'm trying to put this presentation together quickly. This being was nosy. It felt a bit intimidating, but kind of passive, observing and watchful. Either way, I didn't like it. I didn't think it should be there, and I couldn't understand why this came after I got rid of the gray beings the day before. Okay. Now, I've been talking about the UFO shadow people and Hat Man phenomena for quite some time. And I discussed what I learned about the shadow people and how I came to understand the shadow people conversation. There is a presence that people need to better understand. Like we like horror movies, right? A lot of people see horror movies or they have an understanding that people can become possessed. And it's like, well, what is this dark force? And if aliens have a soul, we think our dogs might have souls, right? But if aliens have souls, can they be infiltrated as well? Can they be pressured to do certain things or influenced poorly? And we try to figure out why certain beings seem to have a similar agenda, though they go about it differently. But if they're abusive or intrusive, they're causing harm and they're uninvited, like Greys, reptilians, praying mantis, Nordics, anything that's taken advantage of you that didn't get an invitation, I don't consider that to be a positive vibe, okay? And let me tell you, I sat in with so many people who had been abducted and abused and harassed by beings that look very much like these ones that I shared here. And they would sleep with guns under their pillows. They would set locks. They would have alarms, triggers, cameras, anything to get out from under these things coming to them. But those same people, as time went on, because having the meetings going on for so long, some of those same people changed their tune and they felt they were special. They were selected. This was supposed to happen. They had things to learn, or they found that they were connected to these beings somehow and they had agreed to allow for the experiments to happen. And that's how these things were gaining access to them. So the influences and the connections and the understandings, again, I'm not here to poo-poo anything for what people believe to be true for themselves. If they feel they're connected, so be it. But if this is a presence that you do not agree to wanting to continue at any point, they should stop. Abuse should stop. And yes, I understand there's a conversation out there with people saying, well, it's the government walking around, government agents and rubber masks of aliens causing these abductions. I believe there are some, because I've met someone who claims to be part of that team of people who does that. But are all of them? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But the common thread between these beings causing the problems that they have under poor influences are the shadow beings and the Hat Man being. Now, when I first introduced the Hat Man phenomena, I called him the Hat Man Shadow. I'd categorized him as being a shadow being. I no longer do that, and I haven't for a very long time. People haven't caught up with that, but I'm putting it here now. And so the Hat Man phenomenon, and when it comes to the shadow beings, they're kind of directed by this singular dark force that I call Hat Man. And why I called him Hat Man Shadow, he could become a shadow and he could step out from the shadows and become solid. But when I found he was directing all of this, it became a different story. And that's another super long story. Can't go into, but shadow beings, Hat Man beings, directing, being seen right alongside of these alien beings. Alien beings, what is this? How is this possible? A person that's having abduction experiences are having poltergeists, they're having hauntings, they're seeing these things. How is that all possible? And it was explained to me by an alien being that looked very much like a small child, or some might call a cherub alien or angel, who said that these beings are to be, how can I say, avoided at all costs, how to keep them away from a person so as not to create this spiraling out of control phenomena to rip people's lives apart. But I'm telling you today, this is exactly what has been going on. And I was warned and told by this more positive alien being, he had a name. This being had a name, presented himself to myself and my college roommate, that his name was Calf, and he was there to essentially give the understanding, the warning about these beings and what they are capable of. And I was encouraged to write a book about it, and that's what I did here. Now, what's interesting about the being Calf, who gave me the warning, who told me what to indicate to people who might be facing shadow people or the Hat Man phenomena, because it wasn't just that it was a possibility these things would happen. It was a threat that these things would happen, that they would come, and it would come to such a level that people would have to find the answer, the route to rid themselves of this presence. And if they were somebody who was being infiltrated also by alien beings who are under the guidance or direction of this darker force, that they also needed to be aware and use the same weaponry against these things. And guess what they refer to? Guess what that alien being, cherub looking being, referenced? God. And told me Jesus is who he said he was. Wow. Blew my mind, because I had taken a step away from any thought of religious things, because I had experienced so many things. I couldn't imagine that a fluffy robed person or son of God was ever going to return. I admitted and understood that he had existed at some point, but for me, I was truly a skeptic of such things. I really was. So it was a full circle for me that I had to go back to my times of sitting in a church and having to learn to say, in Jesus' name, stay away from me. And that is what I did in the face of negative aliens, negative beings like shadow people. And then I got the opportunity to go on coast to coast, and the rest is history, as they say. I started speaking about shadow people, putting the warning out there, and people in the thousands got back to me seeking help and letting me know that the remedy in the face of abducting, quote, alien beings, they would leave. He said, in Jesus' name, to go. Now, I also started hitting conferences, every kind that you can imagine, from UFO to sci-fi to Comic-Cons, because the cartooning, and the paranormal cons, so many different places. And I was absolutely just driven, because I know the way that I felt being faced with something so horrific. Shadow people, Hat Man, what is this? Nobody had ever heard of these terms I gave, okay? And but I stuck with them. And I had so many people saying, "Oh my gosh, that is not real. What is she talking about? It was this little girl talking." And I'd go to these conferences and I wasn't invited, okay? I'd go and I rent a table with my book I wrote in 1997, The Secret War book, wrote in 1997, and I'd sent it out to all of these different authors and even radio show hosts, and trying to find a publisher, because only people who published these books on these topics back then were other authors. They were kind of self-publishing. I didn't know the routine to do that. I was a college kid, just trying to find a way. Wrote it in 97. And finally, 4 years later, after having spread it all over the place, I got it published. I was fortunate enough to figure it out. And that's when I hit the road and spoke. And little did I know, as I was putting out word on these things and going on coast to coast regularly, people were getting ideas. Wow, I could do stuff with this. Little did I know, I did not know. People were taking my material and putting them into shows and to film, and not getting in touch with me about this. And the problem with that is, I was told, present this in a certain way, make sure people get the message in a certain way. Souls are at risk. And now people have died in the face of the wrong information being put out there. People who have taken material and said, well, these things are not any threat. It's nothing to worry about that. In fact, this is how you conjure them. This is what you do. And it breaks my heart. It really does. I'm a single person behind this, where I'm taking the calls, I'm taking the emails, I'm responding and doing my best to try to help people who are being faced with pure evil, absolutely pure evil. And to be asked, why did you put that in your show, Heidi, or your film? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't have a single show out there that I've created or film. And one by one, I'd find that people found this to be fabulous for them to take advantage of. So I, of course, wanted to do what I felt was best to try to pull in some of the misinformation out there. Sleep paralysis. That was another way of putting down the phenomena as being real. Oh, that's just a medical condition. This is so many things, calling people delusional, needing psych help and whatnot. And again, there are true psych issues that can create illusions or hallucinations. That I do understand. But to put down all of these people as being delusional because the topic got very popular and it's still going viral to this day, they had to come up with an answer for it and poo-poo it and put it down. But and people have thought, oh gosh, Heidi, you copied somebody, the shadow people. Like, no, I have a poor man's copyright back in 1997, but I also officially, when I could afford it, I was still in college, I copywrote it November 24th, the year 2000. You can look that up. And then I went about doing the trademarks on Hat Man Shadow People. So anybody that's out there discussing these topics are not doing it under my guidance and not with my permission. And that's a shame. And people are like, why, and why I'm talking about it, it's like, why would you go in and trademark such a thing? And when you've seen and read some of the things that I have and the damage that it's caused out there, oh gosh, you would do the same. And it, for people who thought it was science fiction to begin with, and going through so much to try to put the correct understanding of what was going on out there. If this is science fiction, would Stan Lee be upset? Anybody be upset that Stan Lee copywrote or trademarked Spider-Man? I mean, it's like, what is this? I don't know. But a lot of people that are in these fields, they do this because they're passionate about it. I've been doing this for a very long time. I'm super passionate about it. I have given away thousands of my books in hopes of helping more than harming and making a dollar off from it. I put more into it than I've been paid. That's passion. Others, I can't say that. And I'm surprised when people do put information out there on my work, they've never once reached out to say, thanks. No. So yeah, these things, it's disturbing. It's a disturbing practice. But so I feel it's not a game, as others seem to. Yeah, I have a sense of humor. But it's good to always be yourself in the face of talking on these subjects, because way too often people feel they have to talk with a flashlight under their chin or whatever, and not deal with these things as humanly flawed as we all are. And I don't want people to feel defeated. I mean, gosh, people are fighting for their lives in the privacy of their own homes, and nobody to talk to. And I feel that's just a shame. And I want people to know, in the face of these dark times and these dark things coming at them, they can still call on their faith. I can tell you for a fact, people in our government who are facing some of these alien beings and whatnot, they keep their faith. They go to their priests or their pastors for certain. Okay. And why is that? Why does the Vatican have the most powerful observatory in the world where only priests are allowed to look through the scope? Why? Why is that? You got to ask yourself. And, in the face of all these things too, the churches are going to have to help define what's going on. Because a lot of people are going to be asking a lot of questions. A lot of people are going to be stepping away from their faith. And a lot of people have in the past because they feel that their churches have not been honest with them. And that leads me to a couple of the books that I wrote, because a lot of times people write me and they're like, look, I don't get into that religious thing, but I just saw the devil. What? In regards to Hat Man. I'm like, so you just gave a very religious title to something, but you're not going to give the religious title to God or Jesus. Okay, then throw a shoe at it. I don't know how to help. It's okay, guys, to have and hold on to your faith in the face of alien beings being real, shadow people being real, Hat Man being real, which I throw into the alien category more than the paranormal, though it's all related. Okay. So I wrote a book for kids, especially. I have a lot of kids that write me saying, I'm witnessing this. I don't know how to deal with it. My parents think I'm crazy. Well, I can't respond because the kids will tell me their age. I'm 7. Grab my mom's cell phone. I'm typing and writing you. I Googled this. Wow. Yeah. So I did a kids book on the topic of faith to try to get people not be so hard on themselves. Kids, it's just to have a faith the size of a mustard seed, but I didn't hear from any kids. I heard from adults saying, wow, thank you, that helped me a lot. And so I did an adult version of the other F word, how to find faith and laugh at yourself while trying, because people feel like they have to be so perfect in their faith in order to have it. It's like, no, we're flawed. We're not going to be perfect in anything. And in the face of seeing these horrific things sometimes or dealing with them, you gotta pull yourself up and just realize what's going on. Okay, and then I also have a couple other books that I wrote, and I want to say something about these books because I'm somebody that is really, really painfully honest about what happens to myself. I don't know how else to be. The truth is so much easier to remember than making things up, and I was a skeptic of people who claim to have seen Jesus in a piece of toast or whatever. And I wrote about that in my first book, The Secret War. I felt like, people are making things up. I don't know why. I can't imagine Jesus would ever come back here. I knew he was real, but I didn't think he'd ever come back here. And as I was editing my book for the 4 years, trying to get it published, The Secret War book, and I was like, if Jesus were around, I think I would have seen him by now, is what I wrote in that book. Well, I had to eat those words and fix that book because I had an experience I could not just toss out the window. And when it happened, all I could say is, wow, Jesus is no joke. So that's why I call it that. I had things happen that I just could not easily dismiss, and I never will. It changed everything and made things so much clearer for myself. And so I wrote about the several experiences that I had with him, and then I had angelic encounters as well. One thing that I learned, because that being taught myself and my college roommate how to get rid of this dark presence, this shadow people, Hat Man, and nosy alien beings popping through. That's when the experiences changed. And that's what can happen for other people who are experiencing these things. That's important to know because they're attracted to you because you can see them and you can experience them, and they're blocking your view. Okay. I also wrote a couple of books on the Hat Man. I felt that I needed to write a book that was more dedicated to him alone because he was different from shadow people. And knowing that he's the devil and what he's up to is very important. And I also wrote a visual book on how to get rid of these dark entities, which also is the same for alien beings. You can use the same method. And I wanted to also let people know that there's always hope. There's absolutely always hope. And the Secret War book I updated, true story about alien war. and shadow people, because this is what's going on. And this is the battle of all battles going on. And this is the original book. I want people to know that they can write me at HeidiHollis.com or shadowfolks.com and tell me their stories. Tell me what you're experiencing out there, from angels to aliens, shadow people to Hat Man. I'm here to give a level-headed approach and understanding and answers to help remedy some of the situations people find themselves in. And this is my show, Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network. If you go to coasttocoastam.com, you hit podcasts, and you will find my podcast, Dark Becomes Light. And don't forget, on all social media, you can follow me at one Heidi Hollis. And I want to turn this off here. So yeah, I want people to truly find it within themselves to be able to hear what's being presented out there when it comes to the UAP, UFO conversation, and to maintain the course of still keeping their faith, okay? Because some of these things are not our friends that are out there. Some of them are. Just like people. Some are good, some are bad. Just because they don't choose to squash us does not make them good. I could choose to step on an anthill or not, right? So I just want people to know that times are changing. There is something more to the Shadow People Hat Man conversation that I'll be sharing very soon that goes in a direction that no one can try to imitate, though they may try. It's going to get interesting very soon, and it's going in a direction I would have never guessed myself. So once again, nobody has all the answers, and let's pull together on this too. Let's be there for everybody. I have a couple of groups on Facebook that you can join, Shadow People and Hat Man Experiencer. I have Faith, the Other F Word. And I also have Paranormal Pledge, where I just want people to pull together and be the support that each other needs. It's a shame that people on the opposite side of the planet have to reach out to me for help or understanding when they should be able to just roll over in bed and say, my goodness, I just fought for my life just now. Something tried to take my soul. There's a conflict going on out there, guys. Good versus evil. That rumor has been going on for as long as mankind can recall, I think. And I think it's important that biblical texts, ancient texts, religious texts have been all having this conversation, and here we are again. So hold on to your faith, hold on to your friends, hold on to your family, hold on to your understandings, and also ask questions. The churches will be stepping forward soon to try to explain away why UFOs are out there. God filled the stars with life as well. And it's okay. I've been sitting here just fine, keeping my faith and creating a balance, and I hope you do too. And I want to thank Ryan for inviting me to come on here to share some of my understandings and insight and research. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I do hope I hear from all of you. Thank you.